Shabbat Shalom. This study today is a precarious one because we're talking about a leader in the Israeli community in Bible times. He doesn't do a good job. He's critiquing the leader Moses, and you might think, oh, is it not possible to ask the leader a question? Is any question wrong? And is criticism possible according to the Bible? The answers are clearly yes, it's possible to have criticism toward a leader in the Bible. As a matter of fact, there is a beautiful example of the daughters of a man, Slovchad. You need to look it up because I'm not going to go into it right now, but they don't have brothers, and when their father passes away, the heritage is about to be lost, not received by his daughters, because of the law of Moses not providing for that. So those sisters go to leader Moses. They ask him about it. How can we do this? This is a wrong thing. They do it in a respectful way. He's totally open for this criticism, and he's solving the problem. So it's not that the Bible says don't talk to the leader in any kind of question way and with asking questions or something like that. No, it is the way we do it, and the manipulation that is not there, and the respect on a mutual basis is there that makes it totally possible. So that's what it's about today. It will be interesting to have this leader Korach. This is the name of the would-be leader who is critiquing a leader that is a leader. It will be interesting to have him in an interview with when Larry King was still around on CNN. And at the end of this study, I will I'll organize it that you hear this interview that could have been there had they lived in the same time frame. First, the text of today, the first one, Numbers 17, verse 1 through 5 from Numbers, and the greater context that it's part of. Let's go. But with the question, how do you know that leadership can be trusted, reliable? And when it's reliable, when it's not reliable, and when is criticism reliable? Because not only the leader should be viewed today, but also the one who is doing the criticism. We should also watch our dealing with each other from both sides. First text, there we go. The Lord spoke to Moshe. He said, "Speak to the children of Israel. Take of every one of them a rod, according to the house of their fathers. Of all their princes, according to the house of their fathers, 12 rods. Write every man's name upon their rod. You must write Aaron's name upon the rod of Levi, for there must be one rod for the head of the house of their fathers. You must put them in the tabernacle of the congregation before the testimony, where I will meet you, Moses. And it will be so that the man's rod whom I shall choose will blossom. I will make sure that the protests of the children of Israel will stop, as well as the protesting against you." This is part of the reading of the whole text of this week, but I'm going to talk more about this altercation between Moses with Korach. And what Korach did, what kind of a technique he used in order to corner Moses if he could. Torah is showing clearly that resistance against leadership in the way Korach did it is not very nice. It's not to be done. One of the sayings of Korach is, "We are all equal." Why would Moshe and Aaron could only be why could they only be the leaders of Israel? Every one of us could be leaders, as if that question is not a yes, receive a yes, but there is the interesting thing that it hasn't been that way. And there's also a question that cannot be answered, but it can be posed, and that is, why the questions, Korach? Do you only look at the outward things? It's only for the pleasure of the, if that's there in the leadership, or also the duties and all the burdens that come with leadership? Or are you forgetting about those? What are you after? What are you getting after? Position or serving? So this kind of equality that Korach is asking for is the thing we talk about. A leader is not more worth than, or not a higher person than someone else. It's more so that the leader has a gift in order to deal with destructive criticism, and in spite of that is able to view and pursue his goals, his purposes. It's the way in which Korach is expressing his criticism. Destruction without respect, false arguments, manipulation, rhetoric. So there is differences between people, yes, and don't forget there is also equality between people. I'll talk about that shortly, a little bit later on. First, Korach himself. Korach is a leader, you need to know, a man from the tribe Levi. Priestly is in his priestly genes. The priestly signature is in his genes, Levi genes, you could say. With Korach, this is expressing in his way of leadership. It came with him. It came out as manipulation and deception. There is a big group of people that he collected. That they came together. And they knock on the door of the tent of Moses, and they ask for his time. Busy man, Moses, but he was open and ready to answer questions by these women, the daughters of Slofchad. So why not Korach? But then misery. Korach knocking on the door, and Moshe heard already rumors when Korach was busy collecting his group. So when Korach is knocking at the door, Moshe is watching this vast group, 250 men around your tent. Not so nice, because they're not looking so nice and not speaking so nice and pleasure and giving you the feelings of pleasure. So Moses is a little bit scared perhaps, but not only human fear, but the care, because he realizes that people could turn their own way, the wrong way, manipulated by their own manipulation. So on behalf of the group, Korach is speaking to Moses, and he's saying in Leviticus 16 verse 13, you can see it in the screen, Rav lachem, which is Hebrew for something that there is debate about these two words, Rav lachem, but it means something like you've got too much power. Could be different things. There is discussion about it. Whatever it means, this is criticism already. And then Korach continues. Rav lachem, there is much at hand with you guys, and you have a lot of power, too much, because the whole congregation, the whole group of Israelites consists of people who are holy. We are all holy. And the Lord is in their midst, or is in their innermost being. And why do you exalt yourselves above all of us, the congregation of God? Well, you need to realize these are not just some guys. They have titles, they have positions, heads of the congregation called for meetings to make decisions, big, bold decisions. Men of fame. And so Korach is saying these things, and I'll just try to dissect what he's saying. He starts out with saying, let it be enough for you, or something like, you have enough power, or too much power, whatever these first two words mean. Korach is talking on behalf of his dissident group. And I'm not saying dissident group because if ever someone goes to a leader, he's a dissident by default. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that in this situation, people have a special purpose. It's not an open conversation. They could have done this in a very much more relaxed manner. So Korach comes to Moses and he tells Moses what to do. And it looks like Korach is watching leadership and only responds to what he's watching, and what he's not seeing, what he cannot is what he cannot respond to. He can only look at the position, he can only look at the respect he would receive then, and Moses is receiving. So there might be jealousy there, but there might also be a special limited interest in only the pleasure and the appearance, not the burdens and the duties that come with the rejection and all the stuff and all the responsibility that comes with leadership. So this is what Korach is bringing to the tent where Moses is. The spiritual level that Moses had, by which he could see and hear and speak with God. You might wonder if Korah had that. And there's that difference then between people. The second thing he says is all of the congregation consists of holy people. So Korah is stating that everyone is holy and is frum, is very holy and dedicated. As if he's insinuating that Moses is saying that is not so. Moses is not saying that it is not so, but by bringing it like that, by portraying it like this, he is framing Moshe, and he is insinuating that Moses is watching down with arrogance on people. Korach, I think, is projecting his own way of thinking when he would be a leader in this power struggle with Moses, assuming that Moses would think and respond in terms of leadership like Korach does. It's possible that Korach is thinking that not everyone is holy. He's saying that, but perhaps he's not thinking it, and so he's not honest. For instance, in Korach's eyes, was Moses holy? Secondly, why did Korach not take the whole camp? Only 250 guys? Were they more holy than the rest of the people? When in contact with colleagues of mine in America, in Israel, is when I hear that there is a situation where there's criticism in ways of yelling and arguing, and there is the criticism that the leader is lacking interest and giving attention to the people of the congregation. And this is why we leave, they say. And it's like the remarks like Korach is making, that everyone is holy, but they don't get the approval and the recognition for that. So it's also a remark of equality without any study about it. How does Korach know that everyone is holy? Did he study it? Or was this a manipulative argument? The interesting situation is that people in the congregations of the colleagues that I talk with at times, the interesting thing is that the people with the criticism who are doing this in a nasty way and leave, hear that there are people staying in the congregation that don't agree with them about this neglect. And the person who left with the criticism then responds by saying that these guys are just stupid people who don't think and just follow because they didn't learn to think, and they just are people who just you can do anything with them, and they just have no resistance or no self-pride or anything. So it's very interesting how this respect of all these people quickly changes when the leader Korach, people like Korach, receive criticism toward their criticism. The third saying in his statements is, and the Lord is in their midst, or the Lord is in their innermost being. Same thing. This is an argument that people use when they don't have a high value of themselves, saying that the Lord is in our midst. I have the Spirit of God. Why would you say that? Why don't you show it? Because the Bible is, from beginning to end, is stating that if you have this Spirit, there should be fruit that is showing it. You cannot see the Spirit. You can see the fruit, the result of that presence in you. So, by saying we're all holy, there's also manipulation and an insinuation, putting words in Moses' mouth that Moses is not agreeing with that. Yes, they're all holy. So what? Does that mean that everybody could be leader and take up the duties and the resistance and all the responsibilities that go with that? So no, it's not the Spirit, it's the results, it's the action and not the words. So there is the thing, the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit can be in someone, and that person can still make mistakes, can still do things that are not pleasable to God, which happens with Korach if he had this spirit. We don't know that. It's easier said than proven. It's interesting that the Spirit of God is more autonomous than Korach is thinking, and can also bring people into a congregation nowadays and always, but also remove people from that congregation. So this Spirit thing is not so proving the point that Korach is making, that Moses should not be in his leadership. In 1 Corinthians 12 verse 13, it's on the screen, you see this text where it says, "For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body," where the word baptism is a spiritual term, whether Jews or non-Jews, Greeks, whether bond or free, and we're all given to drink into one Spirit. This text shows that God brings people into a congregation, into a synagogue. Don't you think it's possible that he could remove people from those holy places? I think that he's possible, that he's able to do that. The fourth point: why do you guys elevate yourselves above the congregation of the people? We're all equal, and you guys are in some way outside and above. So that's what Korach is thinking, that Moses is elevating himself above the congregation in his leadership. I think that what Korach is doing is he is projecting his own feeling of what a leader is above. He is a leader, don't forget. He is the leader of his group of 250 dissidents. He's also elevating himself. He's not spending any time to realize that or to say it, talk about it, or bring it into the discussion. There is no discussion. And he's claiming that Moshe is elevating himself while Moshe is doing the opposite. By the way, did Korach ever ask Moshe, could you tell me, would you be willing to tell me how did you become leader of our people? Did you give money? Did somebody help you? Something like that. We know that Moses didn't choose his position. As a matter of fact, he refused in the beginning. God gave him this position. But Korach looks at it in a different way. Korach looks like has a problem with authority. and is shooting at Moshe with all kinds of ammunition he can think of. What is this Moshe thinking? That he's God himself? He feels he's above the people. He feels he's more than someone else. Well, we're all equal. And while Korach thinks that everybody is equal, this guy takes the leadership of his movement upon himself in order to prove his point. Interesting joke that you can only see when you see through this. Leadership which he hates when Moses has it is okay when Korach has it. So this position and this mentality that Korach has is aiming at attacking leadership that has been positioned by God himself. The means to break down and destruct this leadership is always good. Whatever means there is, because it's serving the purpose of the destruction of that leadership. The means of the attack is done in words, not only, but in this situation it is in words. It didn't come to fighting, but it could have been, I think, because this crowd was a little aggressive in the position they had and in the tension that was building up. So the means of the attack is words and motives, putting words in Moses' mouth, bringing motives as a description in by way of posing a question. Why do you elevate yourselves? Not, did you elevate yourself, or am I wrong? To me it looks like you're elevating yourself. No, there is this very blunt, brutal way of stating things with a question mark. Next, the attacker becomes the leader. Is already fulfilling this role. So this group of 250 guys are there threatening in front of Moses, who is coming out of his tent, standing in the opening of the tent, and Moses is throwing himself on the ground with his face down, praying to God in a position that shows his, what shall I say, his intimacy with God, but also his being fragile, serving, and also not in this high, authoritative, haughty position that Korach is stating he has. For Korach, everyone is equal, but Korach is more equal than some other people. And now it looks like the conclusion is that we're not equal. Don't forget, I was already saying this in the beginning, that there is also equality between people. The Bible paints the picture that women are equal to men, equal in terms of functionality, in terms of value, in terms of pride and their existence. The Hebrew term for it is ezer kenegdo in Genesis 2 verse 18 in the Hebrew text. The translations are sometimes not so close to the original Hebrew meaning, but ezer kenegdo means she is a divine help. Ezer, divine helper. Kenegdo, opposing her husband, opposing him. Opposing not only in terms of fighting him, although the joke in Israel is that before the coming of Messiah there is this opposition, and after Messiah has come and there is peace, it will be different and more peaceful. Anyway, Korach and his crowd make their point. There is an altercation and they don't come to a mutual understanding, and Korach and his crowd fall in a hole, a sinkhole, a hole in the ground which opens itself and closes itself. The next day everything is quiet and the incident is past. Really? No, that incident is not past at all. A day later you read in Numbers 16 verse 41, or 17 verse 6 in the Hebrew text, that we'll read it. The next day the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured, protested against Moshe and against Aaron, and they said, "You have killed Adonai's people." They didn't realize that it was God who did this, who created this whole, Pirkei Avot is talking about it, that God created this whole specifically for this purpose. And so it's interesting how God is acting in this incident, and he's still doing it when there are things and people are walking away indignant and angry and walking out of the congregation. They think they have it under their control. I think God is removing them with a grace time in order to restore things if that is possible, and people have that will. And that's what we read in the text in Numbers in the beginning with those 12 rods, where God is showing that one of them, in very interesting example, one of the rods is going to blossom, and showing who's the leader. And the whole situation then is cemented and is atoned for, is reconciled. So yes, there is this soft leadership of Moses, which is endorsed by God with these kinds of miracles and this supernatural way of acting and correcting. And soft leadership is also the style of Messiah Yeshua, who is executing power in his soft way of serving. And he's talking about in the New Testament text about power by oppressing people where the Gentiles live, and he doesn't want this to happen in Israel. But first, the text in the Haftarah in 1 Samuel 20, verse 18 through 23, and you'll see how leadership is done by Saul, the king, and David, the king to be. Let's read it. Jonathan said to David after King Saul had thrown a weapon against David, a spear toward him in order to kill him. David fled, and Jonathan says to David, "Tomorrow it's new moon, Rosh Chodesh. You will be missed because your seat will be empty, because we always have nice meals when it's new moon. On the third day you must surely come and go to the place where you hid yourselves when this started. And you must remain by the stone Ezel. I will shoot 3 arrows on its side, as thought I shot at a mark. Behold, I will send the boy, saying, go find the arrows. If I tell the boy, behold, the arrows are on this side of you, take them, then you can come, for there is peace to you and no hurt, as Adonai lives. But if I say to the boy, behold, the arrows are beyond you, then go your way, for Adonai has then sent you away concerning the matter which you have and I have spoken of. Behold, God is between you and me forever." And this is what happens because Saul is even throwing his weapon to his own son, showing what bad leadership can do. And David, the king to be, the king of Israel, with a model that is continually pointed at by God to the kings after after David has passed away, and other kings have taken his place, show how humble David has been. Not perfect, but humble. Allowed God to show his way, not his mouth, but the Lord. Let's go to the third text of today, Matthew 20, verse 20 through 28. And we read, "The mother of the sons of Shabtai," which is the Hebrew name, "came to Yeshua together with her sons. She kneeled in order to ask a certain thing of Yeshua. He told her, 'What do you want?' She told him, 'Command that my 2 sons may sit on your right hand and on your left hand in your kingdom.'" What a question to ask. Leadership desired only the outward appearance, of course. Yeshua answered, "You have no idea what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup, the fate that I'm about to drink, and be baptized with the baptism, a spiritual term, that I'm going to be baptized with?" They, the mother and the son, said, "Yes, we're able to. Yeah, sure. Whatever you ask. We want this position." Yeshua said to them, "Yes, you will drink my cup, and you will be baptized with the baptism that I'm baptized with." In other words, you will also die by the brutal hands of the Romans. "But to sit on my right and on my left hand is not mine to give. It is for whom it has been prepared by my Father." When the 10 disciples heard it, they were indignant with the two brothers. But Yeshua summoned them, and he said, "You know that the rulers of the nations lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. This won't be so among you. Whoever desires to become great among you needs to be your servant." Leadership style. "Whoever desires to be first among you must be bond servant. Likewise, the Ben Adam, the Son of Man, didn't come to be served." There's a mistake in the translation, I'm sorry. "Didn't come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many people." This woman wants a position. She wants to buy a position for her sons by speaking nice words for her sons. And Yeshua is rejecting her request. His leadership model is serving and, if need be, giving your life. And this is very interesting, because I talked also about this last week, I think, when I said that this leadership model is not only for a leader with a group like Moses with the people of Israel, but also for the small group of husband and wife, where in the Bible there are words about this leadership of the husband, which is translated in many families like the husband is the boss of the family, the head of the house. Where Yeshua is saying, if you really want to be the leader, you need to be the servant. And he turns this whole model of being the boss and leading from above downward, upside down, where the husband has the object of it, the goal and the learning position, because it doesn't come automatic, by serving from his position low upward. So we're talking about leadership, and we're talking about the question, how can we trust leadership, and how can we know that objecting to leadership is okay or is just destructive? I'm about to give you some bullets, some factors that are building that picture of reliable spiritual leadership. And the first one is the willingness to serve. Yeshua talked about it, and this whole model that Moses is showing says it, willing to serve. We'll see the opposite, the negative, just in a moment. The second point is, if you have criticism, Mr. Leader, you need to have criticism on the subject, not regarding the person. It shouldn't be a personal attack. It should be a way of talking about the subject and the action taken that needs improvement. Talk about it in a upbuilding way. The third point is to have an open contact with God, an open contact with the Lord, where this leader is also open for correction by God and takes this correction, and you can hear him talk about that. And you can see that in his actions, not in his words, but in his actions, with healthy doubt for himself or herself. There are many leaders in the Bible that are who are women. When you see in the New Testament, for instance, but also in the Hebrew texts, where women are in leadership and accepted and acceptable. So something to work on, perhaps, for some of us. Healthy doubt comes in where this leader is always checking whether sayings and actions are okay. Instead of thinking that he's okay by default, and when he's wrong, the rule one is he's okay. The next bullet is that he needs to have a aversion of manipulation. He should not want manipulation. He should not use lies in order to get his goals, his purpose done. I have years ago I had this experience where the leader of a congregation, he's retired in the meantime, so it's years ago, asked me if we could come to his congregation in the north of Holland, the country, and come with our dance group in order to show how dance is such a beautiful thing, and it can really strengthen worship. And we said, yes, we will come, but no, we will not do this as performance. We'll do it as a part of worship. So we shouldn't be the center stage. We should be just somewhere on the side, because, okay, whatever we said, he said yes to it. We came to the evening and we saw that there was a special stage for the dance group. It was very clear that he broke his yes and his promises. So I went to him and I said, Mr. Leader, not in those words, but I told him that we had an agreement, and he said, yeah, whatever, we go with the flow. We decided to do it this way. He hadn't called me and made me aware of the change, but he said, this is the way we're going to do it. This is the way we are going to do it. I said, but you broke your promise. I very purposely asked you not to do it like this. You said, yes, we will do it your way. And then you changed it without informing us. Well, are you going to leave, or what are you going to do? There's no way of talking to this guy. And he had manipulated me and he had lied. And we talked to each other, the group and I, and we said, okay, let's go ahead and do it anyway. In spite of his mentality, in spite of his nasty attitude. We did our thing. There was no goodbye afterwards. He never spoke to us again because we had dared to have criticism toward his leadership. This is not the way it should be. And it's good to keep those examples in mind as ways of not to do it. Then there is this point of thinking in equality next to leadership. We need to realize that leadership doesn't mean that you're above people, but you're part of the group with the heavy responsibility of making certain decisions that need to be made, with all the responsibility that comes with it. Then also be open for respectful criticism. I gave already this example of the daughters of Mr. Slovchad in the Bible, through whom Moses saw that there was a mistake, there was an omission in the law, and he changed the law for them and for the people after them. Very interesting situation. Respectful criticism, leadership should be open. We showed respectful criticism toward the leader in the north of our country. He was not open for it. Then the leader, a good leader, should have eye for destiny, especially long-term destiny, without his eye for his own interest, but long term, beyond his time, to a future where God is able to lead people, also if things go different than he had in mind. I for destiny. And a very interesting example is in Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the 5 of Moses, where God is telling him a long-term destiny, that Moses will be gathered with his fathers when he dies, and that his people will do foolish things. They will stand, a foolish group of people stand up, and they will do foolish things. The same text can be read in a little different way, with the same Hebrew wording, and it means, Moses, you will die, you will be gathered with your fathers, and you will stand up, and your people will do foolish things. So just a little difference, but now in the saying, it shows that Moses was promised a resurrection from the dead and long-term destiny. That's what a leader needs to have in mind and have eyes for and attention for. And the next point is that the leader is driven for destination, has an eye for destination. I said already that, driven to reach that destiny with as many people as possible. Not just your own thing and at the cost of other people, like Korach did. Last point, choosing creativity and inner growth above tradition and appearance. Very important factor. The last one, but it's very important. Last but not least, choosing for creativity, also in terms of the things the Bible is saying and asking or demanding, but it has to be done with creativity. Like in the Second World War, where a rabbi in, I think, Bulgaria was asking his people at the time of Yom Kippur, where fasting is asked to be done, is required, to go home and not have this long service of 24 and more hours, 25 hours, and eat, have good meal as much as possible, because they needed it in the heavy times of Second World War. Be creative, and not only that, but look at inner growth instead of tradition and outward appearance, because if you have this focus on inner growth, your studies will focus on inner growth instead of just nice words and wishing people a good week and stuff like that, shaking hands and things. It's not outward appearance that counts. It's not tradition that undergirds. It is, although tradition can be nice and appearance can be nice, outward appearance, if it goes without inner growth, if there is no creativity, then that is not what God would want. His Bible, his words are specially meant to be dealt with creativity. What is unreliable leadership? Unreliable leadership has, among other things, the desire to be served. People do what you say, instead of an open discussion where people are invited to do things, including the leader. Criticism by leaders who are unreliable is ad hominem, is at the person, not the subject, not the functioning. We had this with this leader in the north of Holland. The third one is not open for correction. The leader, the unreliable leader, not open for correction by people, not open for correction by God, with the firm conviction that God has chosen him or her as a leader. Then the next one is that a person like this is using manipulation and lies. I talked about it already. And the next one is averse to leadership, but being a leader himself. No, we don't need leaders anymore. That's the olden days. We can do without leaders, says the leader. We heard this. There are examples of that in new congregations in Holland where this is like this. The mentality of condemnation and this disapproval of other people is also a characteristic of unreliable leaders. Condemnation, disapproval of others, divide and lead. An old Roman way of leadership role. Then, when you have criticism toward the unreliable leader, he will take the criticism personally. And we just had some great examples in the American politics where this took place. There is also eye for destiny, but then short term instead of the long term, and with self-interest instead of the interest of the people. Choosing for tradition and outward appearance instead of creativity and inner growth. When can we look at criticism as reliable criticism instead of destructive criticism? Also, that I have some bullets that you can look at, and if you watch this stream again, you can see these bullets again. Reliable criticism should go without false arguments, like Korach did, without putting words in someone's mouth. If I come home and there is a hole in my window and there's a stone that I see, I don't go to my neighbor and ask him, why did you throw this stone through my window? That's not what I'm doing. Because then I have a false argument and I put words or actions in his arms. I should say, wow, that's something. See this stone in my window. Did you see what happened? That's more open, of course. Reliable criticism should also go with respect for leadership. The person, the sucker who takes up leadership should have at least our respect and not be treated in a bad way. I say this with a joke. And the last point is, the fourth point is open for criticism. The reliable criticism is done by a person who is open for criticism toward his or her criticism. It is Yeshua says that you should be a servant and not a leader like the Gentiles do it. That's what Yeshua says in the Jewish New Testament. And this is how you can be holy. Korach says almost the same thing. You shouldn't be a leader, Moses, because we're all leaders and we're all holy. Things look the same, but they're not. It is spiritual discernment that we need in order to see through all this. It's not easy to deal with this subject in our lives. And then next, Korach will tell you how bad the leader is and how it will be totally different when his leadership of his movement will be accepted. Korach is closed for the voice of God, who would like for Korach to improve and be open for criticism, but Korach isn't. Korach can do it himself, he thinks. He doesn't need God for that. Korach needs power, and so he's destructive at the power that is there. But he's denying, of course, when you ask him, are you wanting power? Oh no, I don't want that. The Bible wants us to learn to deal with authority. It's not easy. It's even possible that you listen to this study, you think you're trying to defend your own authoritative position. And you cannot do that because all leaders are bad and are manipulative. Are they? Deal with it. Authority and dealing with authority is not an easy thing. This might be our biggest struggle in our faith, that we really accept the authority of God himself. Korach isn't able to deal with authority in a respectful way. He wasn't very creative in finding ways to have an open conversation with Moses. The person who is not able to deal with authority wants power. I say this again. The person who is not able to deal with authority is trying to have the power. I was talking about this interview with Larry King, CNN. When Korach became the leader of his movement, if he would have been interviewed by Larry King, what would he have said? I think he would have said that it was necessary. It was necessity that forced him to do what he was going to do. Mr. Korach, we have heard that tomorrow you're going to say something to Mr. Moshe with 250 people. What made you do this? What made you start this movement of the people? Well, Larry, I wouldn't call it like you say it. What we did was not an insurrection. We are a movement. Let no one call us rebels. We call this a people's movement. It was very clear that Mr. Moshe had his own style of leadership that we can call bad, very bad, evil leadership. And not only Mr. Moshe, not only is he a bad leader in terms of style, he's very arrogant as well. Oh yeah, Mr. Korach, can you explain that? Can you make it more concrete? Because this is only phrases we hear. We need to have evidence. Well, Larry King, it looks like you're choosing sides for Mr. Moshe. Our movement is carried by all of them, all of us, the whole people. The fact that I'm here with 250 guys ready to go to Mr. Moshe is only because some people are very they're very coward. They're cowards. They say one thing, but they don't put their actions to it. So that's what we call the stupid followers of Mr. Moshe. We choose for freedom of choice. That is if you choose for us. Yes, Mr. Korach, but you have nothing in terms of facts. Can you give us more meat? Larry King, you're not so objective, huh? You're not honest. Our people's movement will, when we get the power, we will see who has this creepy position and attitude of listen to two sides and stuff like that, and have this weak leadership. We have enough of it. We think that people like Moshe should not have the right to speak because they bring division, deception. And watch out, Larry King. You might be the next one to not being allowed to speak anymore when we have the power. Well, anyway, having said that, I will now say what we more in facts is the thing that we have a grudge against Moses. He is stating that he receives his words from God, and so he has this leadership position from God. Well, anyone can state that. Were you there? Was I there when Moshe disappeared in the dark cloud? So that's one. Second point is, he thinks that a leader can say something about other regarding other people, and therefore he's holier. While I say that everyone is holy. And that says it. That's clear. You can draw your own conclusions with that. And thirdly, we don't want anything about this soft style of Moshe with which he is leader. He waits till there is a disaster and then he acts. He's always too late. We will show that what Israel needs is the hard and very clear hand of a leader with vision, not a leader with a so-called calling. We need a leader who looks forward, not one who is just cleaning up the mess that he created himself. A leader that shows to people how everything and anything needs to be done. More police in the streets, more army when we need them. Not one who just allows people the freedom to make their own decisions. We think that if we don't get our thing done to create a new, a stronger party, we will definitely start a new congregation instead of the people of Israel. And I will, you can just bury me if we don't get enough understanding and support for this. And I think that a new congregation and a new people of God, the Lord will support this. The Lord is allowing Mr. Moshe too much. He's allowing things. He's not able. This God of Moshe, he's not able. He's not willing. He's not doing anything against it. I think the Lord needs a little bit of help. Our assistance is good for God, and this is enough, Mr. King. We count on your support. If you know what I mean, thank you. End of interview. So what shall we do? I would like to quote a verse at the end of this study, and this is Isaiah 66 verse 2, which really supports this attitude that the whole Bible is asking of us, and it's on the screen as well. For all these things has my hand made, and so all these things came to be, says Adonai. But this is the man I will look at, that I will give attention to him who is poor and of a contrite spirit, and who trembles at my word. This text is so old-fashioned if you are of this powerful language that Mr. Korach was exerting. But see what God is asking of us. It's the old-fashioned attitude of being contrite of spirit, trembling at his word, and yet we can be powerful. And we can be leaders, and we can be followers of leaders. This is what God is doing. That is how he's building. I would ask of you to learn, to see if it's interesting for you, to learn to see and to watch spiritually and to listen spiritually, because these things are not easy. Dealing with authority is not easy. Seeing through manipulation and deception, it's not easy. And when you see it, what do? The New Testament in Galatians 6 verse 1, I think, says if you see a brother do stupid things, correct him if you need to, but with a soft spirit, because you could do the same stupid thing. There's this equality thing. We are all stupid. We can be stupid, some in such ways and others in other ways. We're all stupid. So have patience with each other, help each other, because we need each other. And then there are the leaders that God appoints, which is also a very difficult thing to prove. How do you prove that God called you to be the leader of something? Difficult things, yet this is what the Bible asks us to deal with difficult things. It was not an easy study, but think about it. This is what it does, because giving ourselves to God is a difficult thing. Trusting God as our supreme leader is a very difficult thing. Trusting him totally with our lives and our everything we have, with our possessions and everything, not easy. Yet this is what God is asking of us. And so I wish you strongly a good Shabbat, with the rest and the relax moments of thinking about these things that God is impacting in our lives with, and forming us in spiritual formation that we need and we will prosper by. So, Shabbat Shalom.